Now we are.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evagnoni.
bringing world Ascended this world this week's Ascended World live stream podcast, collective energy share, whatever you want to call it. Oh my goodness! So agitation is my theme this morning. So discombobulation. No, what was the word I used before we got on?
Agitated? Was it
No,
agitated?
agitated. It was.
Um, Gosh, that was so 5 minutes
Like
ago, Angela.
I know. Sorry, God, I know. So
Um,
yeah, stuff came up all weekend, and it's just been a cumulative thing that's gotten me edgy and irritated over things that, yeah, I don't know, they sort of came out of left field, and but it's interesting. 'Cause I keep on looking at you had when we were texting over the weekend, you said something that you had read something about some 13-year cycle, and I know that's all like symbolic or whatever. But then when you said
right,
13 years, like, well, what happened 13 years ago? Well, 13 years ago is when I left corporate and became an entrepreneur, which changed my life dramatically, um, and my family's life as well, and everything around me. So I'm looking at that, although I really haven't taken it, I haven't gotten any clarity on that.
right,
I get wisps of stuff, but just a whole bunch of annoying crap has happened all weekend.
right. Well, and 13 years for me was I got married, but it's not like I hadn't already been with him for the 2 years prior to that. So I don't know. I looked at that, and I'm happy to say whatever's completed, whatever that cycle was, I'm ready to be done with it.
Me too, except it's like, well, no, because there's this muck you've got to clear out for the clouds that you got to clear out here first.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And yeah, some surprising things came up. And I'm just like waiting to see the dots connect. Part of it came from, and I know that so then what happens is, once that steamroller thing starts going or that snowball starts to roll, then it's really challenging to really find the source of the irritation because then you just want to put it onto everything, right? Then everything starts to trigger you, right?
Right, right.
Whatever that deep, deep thing is. So where it started for me was Friday. I had a back-to-back day um, with clients and sessions and stuff, and so I had to go do a house clearing, and my husband had decided at the last second to work from home on Friday, which was fine. I prefer when I have sessions with people here that nobody's home, but that's just the way it works. And so, when I went out to do the house clearing, I said, well, I know it's going to be really tight for me to get back because the client had rescheduled for an hour later, and then they called me back and said, oh no, I can go and do the original time. And then I was like, okay, well, there goes my buffer. So I said, could you just please run the vacuum through, pick up. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. Well, when I got back, my client was in the driveway waiting. We walk in, and nothing had been done. There had been no vacuuming, nothing, no picking up. I mean, the house was quite messy, and it was well, I, it was just not professional to me. So I sort of shelved that. I just shelved it. Like it was like because and then on top of it, like he didn't take time to do the vacuuming, but he'd started laundry, which the laundry room is right across the hallway from my office. So like I'm sitting there having my sessions and I'm hearing of the water swish swish swish, down. Like, and so I had shelved that, and it was funny because I was like, oh no, I see that's triggering me a little bit. I'll come back to that later. And then shortly after that, he comes in with the blanket. This is when the whole blanket thing blew up, right? And the point is, and it was so. this blanket I bought in Peru last October that cost like, I don't know, I think it was the equivalent of $140 or something like that. It's a baby alpaca wool blanket, soft and light and yet very, very warm and just, and it was something I had bought for him and I, because I usually I'd go away and I buy for everybody else and but I was like, no, I really like this. I want it, right? And so I had said no less than half dozen times since when I came back from Peru, this cannot be put in the washing machine. This cannot be washed by like in those ways. And I made it a point to say it because I'm like, because over the years my husband does most of the laundry, he has ruined so many of my wool things over the
Right.
years because he throws them in the wash. And I'm like, no. And he's really good about certain things. He's um, an awesome spot cleaner. Like he can get spots like nobody's business better than I can figure out how to do it. He's got his stuff. Like so he does all these great things with the laundry, but this like it's like this one thing and it's always something that I really cherish when it happens, right? And so he comes in, of course, so now I'm like I had swallowed my irritation or put it on the shelf about the whole like session thing. And he comes in and he's holding up the blanket and it's like half the size it was and very obviously had been put through the washing machine. And I totally lost it. Like not I had not, well, I mean, I haven't lost it like that, not know how long. And we were yelling, like we have not yelled at each other like that. And I don't know how long. And I was just like, and I'm like 25 years. And why should I think anything's different that anything that I cherish would be sacred in this house? And it was like, and like, oh my God, so many things. And then and I could observe it, but it was like a big pimple that needed to explode. And so I just let it explode. And I didn't say all the things that ego wanted to say, but because I did have that observance, but that got me started. And then I don't know, it's just like every little like then I I was just like, okay, so dispel this, like disperse this, right? Disperse it, dispel, blah, blah. And it was just like I just every time I would dispel something, it felt like something else came up deeper.
A good
That was
place.
yeah, to take its place. So, my cat's being cranky and like having some weird things going on. Then my mother, who I thought I was good. Well, I actually know it's funny because she's acting weird again, even though I feel different about that. Not that was probably the least annoying thing, but I was just observant to it. And I just am like, so what is the core underneath this? Like of why that obviously I need to look at something.
Yeah.
So I was looking at so the 13-year cycle was when I left corporate. And I'm like, so is it that was when I decided to shrug off all the overburdening, right?
Right.
That was when I
Right.
shrugged off because I was in corporate. I was, like had 2/3 of the household income, but then I also managed everything, all the finances, all of the households. Like it was, and all the household stuff. My husband and I always did like that part and part. But I mean, all the stuff that had to do with finances and everything else, a good lion's share of everything. And that's when I just said, you know what? I am not going to lose sleep doing this anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, is there underlying resentment? Is there something like that I feel like I should feel guilty about by doing that, by wanting to do what I love to do, to wanting to do it better, to wanting to do my life better in a way that I'm happier? Like, is there any kind of residual, tiny little crumb that could be being brought up? Because, like, obviously it's something, and it feels like it's something in that area, but I can't quite get my finger on it yet.
Yeah. I had an interesting weekend, but it was mainly dreams and things like that, which I'm not sure relates to this. And then I had something occur to me yesterday, which this might relate to that. Is there's there's a little clip that's played between TV shows on PBS that just irritates me. And it's clearly a gay man who's in a heterosexual relationship, and everybody realizes that he's gay, but yet he treats the woman so poorly. And I don't enjoy the little sketch. It's like 8 minutes long or whatever, and he cuts her down and all this kind of stuff. And then I thought of relationships where the man, just is so awful to the woman, and all of a sudden it was just like a 2x4 upside my head, and I went, "What the phone? That's the woman's problem, not the man's." It's like she continually shows up for it and puts up with it and all this kind of stuff. And so it was just like this about face for me, and I started just getting really irritated about stuff that had never bothered me before. And it's like, okay, what's that about?
Right.
And it was just so it was like an intolerance set in.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And it was almost like, okay, all this time I've been blaming or judging the wrong person and putting all this energy into victimhood, I guess. And whether it was personal to me or whether, obviously everything's a mirror to me. And it was just like all my feathers got ruffled. And I was just like prickly pear, you know. And I kept trying to get perspective on that and say, okay, where is that in my life that I'm blind to?
Uh-huh.
And, coming home from being out of town all weekend, and it's like, the dishwasher was never run. The plants were never watered outside, even though it's at like 120. Things like that. And it's like, I know my daughter is not in the habit of doing those things, but it's like, is she freaking blind?
Yeah. Yep.
Does something have to die in front of you before you even notice it? And it pointed to that she is totally oblivious to what I do. And it's like, and I know my husband isn't, because, he waters the plants as much as I do, and he does the dishes as much as I do. But it was just one of those things where it was like I just came home and I just felt like the walls were falling in on me. And I was just like, oh, wow. And, while I was gone, I dreamed that my house was, slid off a cliff and then just consumed in this big chasm in the earth. And it was like, wow, that was fast. And it was so total. And then last night, my dream was that I was invisible, that I was becoming invisible. And it was like nobody acknowledged that I was here. And it was like I'd wake up and I'd turn over and I'd go, oh, that was interesting, but I'm ready to be done with that. And I'd turn over and go back to sleep, and it would pick right back up. And I mean, and what was even funnier is that nobody noticed. Nobody noticed that I was gone. So I don't know if that has anything to do with any of this, but
It feels like it. And it's like all these little points. It's like I'm seeing all the little points. They point to something.
yeah, yeah. So I don't,
Something blind to about that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and something about how I am who I am based on the stories that I tell of my life. And it's like we're dispersing, we're dispelling, we're cleaning, we're all this. So what's left? It's like, is that where this? See, and I get a really, really butterfly feeling in my stomach when I start talking about that. The Where it's like, okay, so really, all that's left is that authenticity that you've neglected your entire life.
Right.
Well, yeah, that does make you nervous, because it's like that's really all I am, and it's the thing I've paid the least amount of attention to.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, because then there's the judgment underneath it, right? There's the self-judgment underneath it that's like, why did I put up with this? Like, why have I put, like, why have I tolerated? It's like this whole, but then there's the other voice that goes, for example, the thing, the thing with the blanket, it, it, it was a careless mistake. And usually what happens in that situation is it's a careless mistake. And it's one of my husband's habits of making careless mistakes, and he's either one extreme or the other. He's either careless or he's so completely anal it's maddening, right? And there's just
Never gets
never anything in the middle, right? So I'm just like, why is it never that he's anal about something that I care about, right? And I think that's what the whole like judgment thing is, right? And then
right.
there was this, uh, like, then there's this judgment of, well, it wasn't like it was even in the wash. What happened was it was on top of a bedspread that got thrown in the wash, and then he just never pulled it off of like pulled it apart and just
Right.
threw it on the bedspread, which was lazy, right? And careless. Which is so funny from somebody who goes through all the jean pockets when he goes through it, before he puts everything, like he is, like, so I'm like, well, I just don't see why, and then of course, then I get so irritated because then I'm like, so why is it that it's always me that seems to be punished for somebody else's carelessness, right? Or for his carelessness when it comes to that kind of shit. Excuse my French.
But
But
isn't that just because you have a filter that puts the spotlight on you?
oh yeah, absolutely. But it's like every time something like that happens, it's always something of mine, which is that's what gets me like. So
Right.
why do I feel like I need to create that, right?
Right.
And then, of course, the thing about my business, and I am very much looking forward to the new house because I will be able to have my business on a completely different floor from the rest of the household
Right.
versus right now it's right in the center. And you know my daughter does her laundry, and then her delicates she hangs up on the doors of my meditation room where I see my clients. So if I have a client coming in, I have to take it all down, put it someplace else, and I tell her all the time, please don't hang those in here because when I have clients here, it's sort of like I have to go through and take them down anyway, and stuff like that.
Right.
Somebody's running the washing machine right next to the office and seeing something.
Right.
And then and it was funny because now I think back, like Thursday, I was having one of those days where I felt a little agitated because I was trying to get some work done and I was constantly being interrupted.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'm seeing something that just occurred to me this morning that fits right in with this. It's like, my daughter's cat has this bladder tumor. And it's like it's she continually tells us something's wrong by her litter box malfunction. And so we've created spots for it. Well, she's feeling so much better from a fear perspective that she's all over the house now, and she never has been. We've had her for 10 years, and she's always been in my daughter's room or my other daughter's room right next to it. She's never ventured out. She is cat about the house now, which means there are little drips of bloody urine wherever she's been. And I'm just like, I'm thrilled that the cat is so much better between, working with Laurel on the Beamer and then the CBD oil and getting her to just chill about things. But now it's like, okay, so she has this new freedom, but yet I now am inconvenienced because I have to go around and clean up all the, and it's like, oh boy, that just really twisted me up this morning. It's like, why should I have any consequence?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
for somebody else improving their situation or whatever. Yeah,
right, right. Which feels like it fits right in with what you're saying about, okay, your daughter does her own laundry, good for her. But why should that impact you at all?
I know. I know. Why doesn't she just take her clothes upstairs where she lives and hang them up on the doors up there?
Right, right.
And then I mean, even well, and things like yeah. So it's funny because I'm not even wanting to pick on all that, but I mean, just little things like that. Yeah, because it's like So when she cleans out her litter boxes upstairs for her cats, she puts them in a little bag that we use for ours too. But then she was like, she kept on just putting them out on our deck, the
Yeah,
bag.
like as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what? You have to take 10 steps off the deck to go to the big trash can to throw it in there. Or you could just throw it in the kitchen trash because that's what I do anyway, incorporate it.
Right.
And so, like, I finally yelled at her because animals come and then,
Oh,
it's, yeah, right?
yeah.
And so I, so the other, so it was like Thursday, or I think it was Friday morning. She did take the garbage out. She actually did bring the litter down. No, wait, this is even funnier. She brought the litter down. She put in the garbage and she took the garbage out because it was full, right? And she took it out to the big garbage pail, but she put it on the ground next to the garbage pail.
Close, but not quite.
So the next morning, when Scott and I are out in the yard with the cats, I look over and there's garbage everywhere because yeah.
Animal got in it. Right.
And I'm just like banging my head against the wall going, what? This is such a hard thing. This is an intelligent being. So anyway, yeah, so it's just the little things, these little things. And you're right. Um,
Well, and it's like, okay, we've come to the point where, okay, that's their journey, that's their deal. So why does it still have an impact on us
at all. Right. I
at
mean, I
all?
guess just choose to not care and let the garbage sit all over the yard, but
Right.
I'm really not happy about that.
Right.
So,
Well, and it's like bloody urine all over the house. It's like,
yeah,
okay, so I should just wait for my daughter to decide to clean that up or just not worry about it? Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, that feels like the same thing because it's like leaving the garbage in the yard. Like, okay, and I'm gonna stare at it all the time, like because you're walking through the house and there's bloody urine drips all over the house.
Right, right, right.
So underneath that, and and I know these are all subtle things, and I know it all had to
Oh,
build up for me to finally like get irritated about it because it was like, oh yeah, I would just sort of like flow through something,
yeah.
and it's like
Well,
no, look at
and it feels like this is something where, these are the symptoms, but it's not what you think it is.
right, right, right. So that's why I was sitting in meditation this morning. I was like, so whatever it is, let's just burst it, sell it, let's you know, so we can move forward.
Right.
It feels like it's still hanging there unresolved though.
Yeah. Definitely feels like it's, yeah. For some reason, I'm just lost in the irritation.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm sort of looking off looking
Like, yeah,
off.
I can feel that irritation, but I can't feel much else.
Yeah, I know. So we're feeling into it, and it's like, oh. So all weekend, I was painting furniture, listening to an audiobook, and that's usually very meditative for me, but it really didn't do much for me this weekend.
Yeah.
So it's obviously something to be attended to. And I can feel it. It's like a big rock in my chest right now. It's like,
Yeah. Well, and okay, are these leftover crumbs from rolls that we've filled that we haven't fully?
or is there a rule that we still haven't looked at because we're blind to it, right?
Right.
Haven't even looked at that are sort of breaking by us changing the other one.
Well, and now that I think back, and I think I texted you about this about yeah, I did when you texted about the blanket about how I had heard somebody, dismiss a professional's behavior. Oh, he's just a boy.
Ah, I know. I felt
And
your
I
pain
mean,
there. Like, oh, I had, like that's what boys will be
and,
boys.
and I was,
Like,
and it made it worse because given the person that whose mouth that came out of, I mean, my level of respect just bam for that person because I'm just like, that's what's wrong with the world is everybody's just excused from their behavior. And oh, whoa, maybe that's it. And just like when I was looking at, the TV show that irritated me and I was angry with the wrong person. It was like, they're excused from their behavior and let's blame the person who's doing this when actually they're equally responsible for the dynamic. Maybe it's a responsibility thing because it's I don't know. I feel it's my responsibility to evolve myself, or what's a better word for that? Be the best. Be the best I can be. Be the best me. Live my best life.
right. Yeah.
So
Well, and it was funny because then I had posted on a few stuff. I posted on the Trinity page about um yeah, having a client that called me up and wanted to talk, like
right,
it was kind of how they couldn't, like, like they stopped doing this work because they just couldn't handle like people who came and say they wanted help, and then she'd give them suggestions, and then they would not do anything,
right,
and
right. You did the same, and she did the same.
then she came in, and it was the same exact thing, and I thought that was so funny. That didn't even irritate me. That was just, to me, so funny and ironic. So, you know,
Right,
and it was like every time I was suggesting a different perspective, an expanded perspective on something that was holding her up, and she came up with something really different, and I was like, it was like, no, I don't think so,
yeah,
or no, or I've tried that, or I've tried this, or no, I don't think that'll work. That won't work. Yeah, and I'm like,
right. And I guess that's it. Is that it's that people who don't want to help themselves.
back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So it's just a lot, but all of this stuff, it seems disparate, and I know it's all pointing to something else, right?
right, right. Well, and I mean, I look at the political climate right now, and we just need to go back to where you're from, or and I mean, it's like, again, I know that that's just a symptom, and it has to get worse before we've decided it has to get worse, so that more people will begin to see things for how they are. I'm just part of me just gets so saddened by the whole thing because I feel like we're going backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, and all that's judgment, right?
Right, right.
And for
Because
me, I know it's all judgment. So it's like, okay,
we've created it this way. So in judging them, we're judging us,
right, exactly.
which feels really yucky.
Well, yeah, I mean, and as angry as I was with my husband about the blanket, and it's funny, it seems like a little thing, but I think it was over 25 years. This has happened so many times, and I was like, okay, figured we were past this, right?
Right.
And it's not that I'm all that attached to things, but the energy of Peru still, for what happened last year, it still resonates on something that's still being cleared up underneath at the collective. And
Right.
to me, the way that blanket was a part of that,
Right.
comfort. It was like almost like it was comfort in
And
allowing that to resolve, right? And now that blanket's not that anymore. I just do that. I was like, well, I know it's not just a blanket.
yeah, Laurel's got a comment. So I'm looking at what I tell myself it means, the story when something happens. They don't love me, don't value me, etc. Yeah, so it's focusing more on the story,
Right.
which
Well,
I feel like, that's what,
well, and it was funny because I was looking at the whole thing going, okay, like I don't, I always know it has nothing to do anymore. Honestly, I don't feel like I have that much committed to having to make other people love me. Like I'm
right.
pretty, overall, I'm pretty happy with myself. So I don't need somebody to love me. And so I've really let go of most of the valuations based on that. So when I looked at this because of why I was so angry Friday night and, all these little things that I wasn't being honored, right? But it was almost like it was a judgment of me giving away, letting myself give away parts of me, right? Because in a way, that's really what it is, right? It's the roles, like you with the cat thing and having to pick up the cat stuff, and it's like, and it's a little crumb, but there's something around that, and it was something about the why am I still doing that? Why do I still even allow it to even like a tiny bit of an iota?
Well, I think, and it's that intolerance. And so if we still, okay, it's hard to put into words what I'm saying, but it's like, okay, if we're, and I know it's not linear, but if like we're moving forward, but yet we're still allowing these things to keep us anchored back here. It's like, why do we keep allowing that? Why do we keep allowing that pull back once we've gotten to a place and then up, pull back? And it's like, why are we allowing this? Just like you said about, and it's we're allowing pieces of us to pull us back. Be something about that feels really yucky.
Well, this whole thing just feels really yucky.
Yeah.
And it's not the whole like needing other people to love me because it's really not. It's not. It's it's self whatever self reflection.
And Laurel says that's still about validation, isn't it? I'm not being honored. If we didn't have the story, it wouldn't affect us as much, right?
Well, really, but it's really validation within myself because the judgment isn't about them. It's more about me. Like really, the irritation is why have I allowed this? Like why do I allow this? But then the other
Right.
voice goes, um, then like there's another voice that says to me, well, is it really realistic to say, okay, well, anything that I cherish, I'm gonna hold on to, like in a safe, like like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, that's not even realistic. Like, why would I even do that? I wouldn't do that. That's not me. It's not even in the fabric of my being. So it's like, well, that's still, and maybe it's okay. So here's something. Maybe it's as we're allowing things to disperse, right? To resolve and complete. Um, is it when somebody else around us is still holding on to the it's what, this is really where this is part of what's coming from because I know what came into my head when I was going through the whole thing because like when I was so angry and I was like, where's this from, about the blanket, and it's because of my connection to that. It's still like a freshly completed and resolved thing, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I was still like allowing that freedom from that what I hadn't even known was holding me back for so long, the energy about what happened in that life and the other dimension also, all the stuff that we saw down in Peru, right?
Right. Right.
And what went to my mind was, look at that. He has to go and take that away from me because he still hasn't resolved that within himself.
which means that he's not at the same place you are.
Right, right. Even if it's not even a conscious thing. So
Right.
so what it feels like is, oh yeah, this feels so, I can't even say it.
Yeah.
As we have done this resolution, right, and we're doing so much to disperse, right, to in dispersal, that those around us are not necessarily at the same point of dispersal and resolution, right?
Right.
So they
Right.
still have remnants of the energy of those things, right, that are still reflecting to us in our reality.
Right. And Laurel puts in, where does trust factor into this? Well, the trust is that you trust that they'll get there on their own, that it's their journey.
And maybe, oh wait, so how about this? Is there an energy out there that we believe collectively, because it's on both sides of the fence? Do we believe there needs to be punishment for those who are resolving first and earlier, and free of the stuff that has caused the stories in the past? I mean, there's something like that, like,
Well,
because
almost like it's harder because it's like swimming against the tide,
right,
which
right,
goes back to okay, so I have to work twice as hard to get half as much, that whole thing.
right.
And being first, or being, you know,
Oh my God. Yes, because the energy of that, right, is the reasoning of that thinking is, but that's okay because at least I know what the hell I'm doing, even if nobody else around me does, right? I mean,
right,
that's the ego thought. Because I think back to when I was in corporate, and that was really what I would think often whenever something situations came, when I felt like I was like, swimming in molasses because everybody around me was just like, circling around and scratching their head and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, how can you not see this clear path forward to do this, whatever it was, right? And then I
right,
realized, oh, yeah, okay, so now I'm going to do this and I'm going to put the extra effort in to do it because I can see the clear path forward, but it's almost like I had to be handicapped or burdened because I could and nobody else did.
right, right, right. Well, and is that, and that's just nothing but a belief,
Well, of course it is.
right?
Of course it is. Um, and I know we've touched on this before, but this is so deep because it comes to this such a collective level of,
Well, and remember when I saw us, and however many weeks this was, it may have been last week or 2 weeks, I don't know, about when I saw us saying, okay, before the council saying, I'm not taking responsibility for this anymore.
it's almost like, oh, what? Like it's almost like we said that, and then there's so many others who are like, what? No, 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 no. You need to be burdened down with this. No, you're way too light on this. You're doing way too much.
Or you're going way too fast and we can't keep up.
Oh yeah, that hits home. And our fear, our crumb, right, is the fear. Well, remember you said you had last week you were having weird feelings of loneliness,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
like that were different than before, but they were that, right? And
yep,
I hit me at one point too, and it's like because that's what it is, right? That's our egoic part of holding ourselves back to that, of feeling like we have to be, uh, you know, feeling like we have to be with the pack, right?
right, right, right. Misery loves company. Well,
Even if
and this whole illusion falls apart without 100% buy-in.
right.
I think that feels real.
And at the collective is like, no, because we're not ready to let go of all this. And how dare you break
Right,
that? And there's
right,
more and more of us doing it. And as we set the energy of the collective, more and more doing it and more are focusing at collective level stuff, which then more and more clears it out and allows it. And then there's almost like that, there's that bipolar pull, right? Stay and
Well, and
go.
then there's that dig in of, oh no, I'm not going to let you do that.
And at some level, we still buy into it because then we believe, oh, that would mean that we have to do something wrong. Like, I don't know, there's like not even a word for it.
Yeah, it's like you're doing it's I'm seeing it as dark light, right, wrong, and it's like we used to feel that we were the ones that were always right, you know, and righteous, and now the tide has turned, and it's like the angels of destruction. Nobody wants that, so you're the bad guy.
When we don't use it that way, but if we use the terminology, what if we said angels of creation? Because
Right, right.
destruction and creation are the same exact thing.
Your picture just went away.
Ah, music froze. It says resolving network issues. Can you still hear me? Oh, no, you're
Yeah,
there. Can you,
yeah, you're back now. That was you said that, and your picture just vanished. It's like we'll stop you technologically.
buddy?
Yeah, I think we're back to normal, whatever that is.
Whatever that is for the moment. Just heed that as a warning.
This is just a sample. And I keep coming back to like the Garden of Eden
Yeah.
and like the how the apple fruit of knowledge of good and evil, and it's like how that was seen as such a bad thing, and it's like, so what we're doing, I see that as being viewed in the same way because it's the ending of something.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, I've always looked at that, the whole Garden of Eden thing, because those of us who've gone back, and looked at Lemuria and remember that it
Right.
was very much, oh, the Lemuria was really more of a period versus just, you
A bite
know,
of an apple.
yeah.
Right. No, I agree.
And so really the what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, the symbolism of the apple, right? Whatever of knowledge
Right.
really is. So the funny thing is, to me, the whole like leaving the Garden of Eden thing was not. It was not that at all. Opposite. It was cutting ourselves off from the
Right.
knowledge and
Right.
remembrance, right?
Right. Right.
So it's like really, to me, the eating the apple was a forgetting, was making us to forget.
And allowing judgment.
Yeah. Which then we didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
well,
I agree.
and
Instead of
so,
it's like they lead you to believe, well, it was expanding your knowledge when actually it was shrinking.
yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
something is really, really deeply shifting and just talking about this. So this might even be at the core of this whole thing
Yeah.
because we have, and I have maintained, I felt like for years that this whole, like, like in Stranger Things, they have, it's the upside, they call it the upside down world, right?
Right.
So I've really maintained, I think this world is completely the opposite of what we think it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's how we made it in separation, right? So if I think about it, and it's like, well, all right, so if this is an upside down world, right, and that would make sense, well, then really the apple of knowledge was the apple of forgetting.
Right.
right?
right, right. Because, if you think about their terminology, the fruit, the knowledge of good and evil is
We're
the
creating,
intellectual judgment.
yeah, creating judgment that there could be good and evil.
Right. From just overall, everything's perfect.
Right? So there's something really key about that in terms of all this.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel something really tweaking with that one.
Yeah, doesn't feel as sucky as the other parts.
Right. Yeah, I would agree.
But hmm, what else? We have. So if
Feel
we
like
thought of this stuff in the opposite of what we think, how would that look? That's what I'm just trying to put my arms around. Like if we're on that track.
so. All these things that are coming up are well. What I found was that what I believed was the opposite of what I think is the reality of the circumstance. So, like, instead of blaming the person for their bad behavior, blaming, judging, putting responsibility equally, or shifting some of the responsibility to the person who was the victim or playing that victim role. So that was a turnabout for me. Um,
We've talked about that a lot,
right,
over the years because I mean, really, it's all about me, right? It's all about you. Your reality is all about you. My reality is all about me. So usually we get so angry at somebody else because we're judging ourselves for whatever happened in that situation, right?
right, right, right.
And it was
Well,
funny
I
because
mean, another thing supported in it's the opposite of what you think is, you think of, expanding and we need to go out and get bigger when actually the answer is within, smaller.
and which yeah, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, right? That
Right.
going that going in for expansion, right?
Right. I need to go in for
So,
some expansion. Go in for some expansion work.
so then what do we there's another big it's another really important piece. It's almost like I see it as a sliver of glass. That's sort of like the thorn in our side to pull out.
Part of me wants to say, well, part of the opposite of what we believe is we believe that it depends on our behavior and our actions and our energy when it's inevitable, regardless of what we do or don't do. And that our return to being is inevitable because all the doing will be taken away from.
Well, yeah, that goes back to that whole being presence, right?
Right, right.
So, okay. So at some level, are we then still judging ourselves? Like there's something around this. I'm trying to get my finger on the mercury.
Right,
Right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Are we still judging ourselves for doing, period, and others for doing?
I think so. I think so because I think we just don't know how to. I think we haven't gotten to that place of being comfortable with just being. And how do we project that? And how do we live that? I know this week, meeting these people at this event that I was at, and it was like, oh, and what do you do? And they're so focused on what they do. And I said, my answer is I be the best me I can be every day. I
which I
felt,
loved. I love that answer.
and I mean, they just were kind of like speechless. But yeah, it just, I know it upsets the apple cart and it upsets all this kind of stuff, but it's like that there is no apple cart.
Right. Well, right. At the end of the day,
Right.
no apple either.
Right.
or
So
or
need a cart.
pomegranate, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Well, I feel like we're knee deep in it and just still can't
Yeah, I know.
work
It's
through it.
better than it started out being. So that's why I'm just sort of waiting. It feels much better. At least there's some weight that's lifted off the heart, which is good.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel like we've opened the door to what this is, but don't have the words to
Maybe we
associate with.
and maybe today is just allowing that to disperse. It's almost like we've opened a door and I could start seeing things starting to bleed out.
Right.
Like tea in the house. Right?
Right. Yeah. There you go. Well, okay. Okay. Now, so if I look at it from that perspective, this is what just occurred to me. It's like my cat believes that she's never known anything other than that safety in that room, and now she's branching out, and it makes sense that things have to come to a new level of balance
Right.
or alignment or flow in this new circumstance,
Right.
and that my impatience is, well, why is it not all done? Why is it not all perfect? Why is it? And it actually is. It's just, in my judgment,
Right.
inconvenient.
Right. Right.
Because the bottom line for me is, I want her to be happy and healthy, and I feel like the happy parts really come up, and
Well, the disparity part is in, but not to your punishment, not your having to, that's there's still a step in there that's for us to shift.
right. And I also acknowledge that it's unrealistic for me to think that my daughter can, you know, not work, not do whatever, just to stay home and clean up little red drops of urine. I mean, that's unrealistic.
Right.
Or is it?
There are always kitty diapers because cats love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I trust me, I have considered that.
Um,
Then it doesn't matter.
right. Well, and I guess that's what I keep on asking myself is like, what's there to do to neutralize the charge, right?
Right.
Neutralize,
Well,
ooh, what's there to do to neutralize the doing, right? To allow the being.
see, and what I was thinking was neutralize the responsibility, which is the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's allow the level of doing to adjust to the new level of being.
Another level of surrendering. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which comes a new level of trust.
Right. Well, but then part of it is us committing to stepping back and observing, right? Or just stepping back and being and allowing it to happen without judgment,
Right.
right? So that's easy to say for little things, right?
Right.
Thing is, well, what's the step to add in there that's going to allow things to change without taking the burden of being, say, punished in some way, shape, or form, or limited by the lapse. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So what would that be? So maybe it's just that clarity on how to do that. We're just committing ourselves to being that way.
Right.
Because in the meantime, it's not our job either to pick up the slack for everybody else, right?
Right. Right.
We into our reality, and then why do we still feel like responsibility to make it easier for everybody else? Because
Yeah.
we're in an easier place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why do we believe like why do we believe that needs to why do we even believe that needs to happen? So, and it's not, it's having to do with this collective thing. There's something in the collective about this. It's like, oh, we have to do this and like, let's all hold hands in a big circle. And if somebody's drowning in the river, we have to like either help them out or drown with them.
Right. Right.
When there's actually a third choice, right? But maybe it's just getting clarity on what that third choice is in a place of neutrality and unconditional love.
Yeah. I feel like something big's moving through.
Yeah, I can't even think of any words to go with this because I can sort of see
Yeah.
the in different levels at the same time.
And I think you're right. A few minutes ago when you said it, that this week's probably just about allowing it, because I think there's going to be some,
Something, something.
and I hate to use the word fallout because that has such a negative connotation, but I think there's going to be some shifting and adjustments, realignment.
Realign, yeah, adjustments and realignment. Oh, it's gonna allow for it to all come back together. Yeah, there's the yawn. All right, well, so then that's where we just focus. Let's just go and do that.
Yeah.
Allowing, committing ourselves to allowing that, being able to see it, to let go and just be, and to know how to do that in between thing, right? In the allowing, in that, in a way that assists, truly assists and supports. So here, yeah, the realignment happened because backwards, right? Backwards world,
Right.
the really underlying, we so things like, well, where's my support, right? We go back to the support thing. What really is the best thing we can do as individuals in supporting the collective is to commit to that being in our own presence. And of course, the collective is us anyway. So that's the importance of that whole commitment too. All right, let's go do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Really got me out of it.
Oh, Charlie's scratching up the storm.
That felt like it was the very beginning of what's going to be going on for the entire week.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, something that's like turning over a stone and seeing all the
Because it was
bug
like
crawl out from under.
the more we shifted, the more we had to shift. Like I could just feel it getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was like, okay,
Yeah, trust, trust.
flow and ease, flow and ease.
Right, right.
I'm trying to remember. I was seeing stuff out there. I can't even remember what it was though, because I ended up getting really deep because it was like all these layers. Like one layer, then it was a bigger one, that was a bigger one, then I was gone. Feels a little better though.
Yeah, it feels different.
Feels manageable. Not manageable.
We'll see.
Feels like,
Jury's out
well,
on that one.
feels easier than it was.
It doesn't feel as so much animosity as before.
Well, and it's interesting because what it makes me think of is a client of mine had talked to me about one day she like started having like she's got major transitions going on in her life and she started talking about how like she started having this major discomfort in her body, right? And she was sort of like she was like so, like what is this or whatever and but it was like this energy that came through and she goes it was like I was giving birth but I was giving birth through my heart.
Wow.
Yeah, and she goes it was rough. So anyway, interesting. That just came to mind because when you were saying that, it is almost like birthing something different right now. It's like we're in the latter part of that process,
Yeah.
and it's like when you say, yeah, like okay, yeah, feels not as tough, right? It's like well, and yet there's a part of me with a capital M, the higher level me that's going to just allow, right? And then
Yeah.
there's even the 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 little spark of knowing, of knowledge, of knowing what's happening in the feeling of in the feeling of having a subsequent child from the first one, like, oh yeah, now I'm in this part of labor. Okay, I just have to sort of like get through it, right?
Right. Right.
So it's sort of like that, but at a collective, like really different collective level. But it's almost like we took away what causes the pain in the process, you
I
know?
can see that. Yeah.
So that's what I'm committing to. It does feel better. It does not feel as uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're right, the irritation's pretty much gone.
Right.
There's just a desire to, hang up and then go sit in meditation for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
All right, well, let's hang on that and see how it goes this week. Because,
Right.
wow, say about that. At least we opened up, it's almost like we opened up the floodgates to allow for like all the pent up stuff to just flow
Yeah.
through. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
think that there's some deep resolution going on here.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
feels good. So, in allowance, in commitment to allowance. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see how this turns out this week. We'll see you next time. This is Anna Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnani.
signing off on this Descended World. Have a good one.